Hey guys. So there have not been a lot of life events happening to me. I'm a little bit too busy for life events right now. The biggest life event is that I just found out this past week that I will be staying at my university over the summer to perform research under my advisor. And so instead of telling you about my life events, I'm going to tell you about all of the projects I'm working on, which is why I'm so busy. And so the first project I'm working on is formal verification of a UAV swarm using ad hoc networks. And there's a lot of very complex things happening in that description. So let's go a little bit deeper. Formal verification is sort of the central part of this project, and it's a little bit hard to explain. But basically, there you have a special language that is made up of logic. And so a sentence in this language might be, um, for my UAV swarm, it might be visit this location, or it might be avoid that location. And so that would sort of be a sentence in this logic language. And then formal verification basically takes all of these sentences that you create and says, okay, is it possible to satisfy all of these requirements that have been outlaid? And so the other big part of this project, besides the formal verification part, which is sort of the whole purpose of the project, is the ad hoc networks. This is sort of the novel thing that we are trying to work on in the project. And that is basically, instead of having the drones connected to, say, Wi-Fi and being able to connect and being able to talk to each other over Wi-Fi, each drone has some kind of radio on it, so one drone can talk to the other drone. And for the formal verification of this, our sentence would be something along the lines of each drone has to stay connected to the larger network of drones. You can't have one that's off by itself with no communication. And so that is the project I'm working on for my formal verification class. The next project I'm working on is Fuzzing for CyberPhysical Systems. So once again, we have a bit of terminology to unpack here. A cyber-physical system is basically any physical device that has a computer inside of it. So a robot, or maybe a robot arm, is sort of the classical example of a cyber-physical system, but it could be something like a smart fridge. Any physical device that has a computer embedded in it. Cars would be considered cyber-physical systems, things like that. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to fuzz these devices. Now, fuzzing is a term used in computer security, and basically what a fuzzer is it just tries to guess random inputs for whatever program or device you give it. It just guesses a random input to go in, and it tries to crash the program or the device using these random inputs. So we are trying to test these fuzzers on cyber-physical systems. We are trying to crash these devices using these fuzzers so we can see whether or not they are safe to use. Third, for my computer vision class, I am working on a project to perform semantic segmentation of CAT scans and MRIs. And so what that is that we are trying to take a slice from either a CAT scan or an MRI, and we are trying to have the computer look at this image and determine where the liver is. We're specifically interested in identifying the liver in these images. And then we want to sort of highlight the liver in some fancy color so that it is easily identifiable to somebody looking at the image at the end of this process. This is especially tricky because for a human looking at one of these images, it might be really easy to tell where the liver is, but to get a computer to identify where the liver is surprisingly difficult and requires lots of neural networks in order just to even get it to come close. The other issue is that CAT scans and MRIs aren't really all that similar. Robert, I'm sure you're aware of that by now. But so the problem is because they're so dissimilar, we basically have to have two networks, one that works on CAT scans and one that works on MRIs. And finally, the research I am working on with my advisor, and I'll try not to get too in-depth on this because I can't talk on it for a while if I have to. But the purpose of what we are trying to do is we are trying to take a video stream from a self-driving car and also some of the information from the car, like the speed and the angle of the steering wheel and that kind of thing. And we're trying to understand, first of all, what the car is doing, but then we're trying to use the video stream to understand why the car is doing what it's doing. And the reason this is so important is because when a self-driving car performs a certain action, it's very difficult to understand why it performs that action. It's all these neural networks, which are they're basically black boxes. Some input comes in and some action comes out, but there's no real way to tell why it's doing this. And so instead of, just trusting these cars blindly, we want a system that will be able to explain why they do what they do. And so I will link a paper in the description that actually sort of talks about exactly what we're trying to do. This is a paper that came out of Berkeley that we've been trying to recreate as part of this research. Now, I believe it's my turn to ask a question again. So my question for y'all is, what's something that you've always wanted to learn more about, but just never have? So for me personally, I've always been interested in learning another language to the point of being conversational. So I know just a little bit of Spanish, but I can't really hold a conversation, and at this point I've probably forgotten most of it, so I don't think I could even read a little bit or understand somebody speaking it anymore. And I know a little bit of Chinese, but again, I don't know enough to be conversational. And so that's one thing I've always wished I had learned, but I just don't have the time for it right now.